Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I am Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And we are joined.
Holzfeuer! Come on, I just jumped in
Yes,
there.
we are.
I knew my cue.
You did know your cue, and I botched it. We are joined once again by Holzfeuer. This is Why Does This Exist?
Exactly. Thank you. Appreciate you having me back to talk about another Austroploitation film.
Oh, of course. This is terrific. Today we will be speaking about Jingle All the Way, which is probably the greatest Austroploitation / Christmas exploitation movie of all time.
Yeah, right? In fact, when I first heard that this movie was coming out back in the 90s, I was pumped. And you know why? Because back in Austria, you know how in life there's a problem when people just kind of phone something in or they half-ass it? Well, in Austria, they have this thing where people jingle part of the way. It's like, it's goddamn pathetic.
No,
so when you
gotta do all or nothing.
Exactly. That's my point. So when I saw this is coming out to alert the world of this problem that you have to jingle all the way. This is perfect. Come on.
And who better to jingle all the way than our man Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad?
Can you believe that?
It was such an odd pairing, but it works. And honestly, this was like, at this point, you couldn't get away from either of those guys, so it made perfect sense to put them together.
Right. I always wondered if it kind of skewed people's perception of Arnold when this came out, because Sinbad is bigger than Arnold. I mean, that throws things off, right?
At the time, kind of, yeah.
I mean, he was taller. I mean, and more preference, he was bigger. He was a larger man. And it made Arnold look human. Which
I never thought of it that way.
Weren't really used to yet. Because so much of his career, they really emphasize that he's larger than life. Not just the muscles, but even like the camera angles that James Cameron took with Terminator. They always made him look gigantic. And then you watch Jingle All the Way, and suddenly there's Sinbad there, this mere mailman, postal worker, and he's bigger. It's wild. Hey, maybe it's just me.
How tall is Sinbad, actually?
I believe he is 6'4". Wow.
Yeah, he's 6'6"?
Damn. Oh,
wow.
Oh.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's big. I ran into him before. He was at Comic-Con. And I remember he was at least my height, if not taller.
Wow.
In fact, you're right. I think he was taller than me. I'm 6'4", and he was taller than me.
Wow. Yeah, my parents saw him at Atlantic City once, and they said he was still really funny. This was maybe probably 10 years ago, and by now.
I have to say, he seems like a cool guy. I didn't meet him. I just walked past. But he seems like a good guy to me.
Yeah, he seems like a good dude.
I mean, I know he rubs people the wrong way because he could be obnoxious and get annoying with his humor.
Yeah, but that's his personality as a comic. He's got to got to do it. Like,
that's his deal.
Yeah, it's like if you don't know him, then I'm sorry, but like if you do, you kind of expect him to be a certain way, and that's fine.
You know what I also noticed about Jingle All the Way? When I was looking back...
Oh, he served in the military.
He did, hey.
Yeah, he did. He was in the Air Force.
He was a vet. Oh, yeah. See? He's more than just a postal worker in Jingle All the Way.
Yeah.
But what I noticed when I was looking back at when this movie came out and everything that was previous and what came after, and it could be said that this was the last film by Arnold that was truly beloved and cherished by people. Because because before this, of course, Predator, Running Man, Twins, Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, Last Action Hero, T2, True Lies, all that, right? And then you hit Eraser, and then Jingle All the Way. After that, here's Batman and Robin. Everyone hates it. End of Days, nobody really cares. 6th Day, same. No one cares that much. Collateral Damage, no one really cares. T3 comes out. People are like, oh, it's not as good. It doesn't belong. And so you look back, what was the last movie that people were feeling emotionally attached to in some way? And I think it's Jingle All the Way. So in a weird way, this is the closer for Arnold in his movie career in terms of connecting with his audience in a truly emotional way.
Yeah, I never actually thought about that, but that is like 100% right. Like,
yeah, I only realized this today when I was looking back.
Newer movies that are like better than like that kind of slump that he hit in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like
right.
The newer movies are like better than that, but they don't have the same like magic as like the original classic Arnold movies.
Exactly, because in fact, so ArnoCorps. If for your listeners, we put out records that take back exploitation films, and we retell them the way they were meant to be told. It is restoring integrity. It is fighting the bastardization. So we did a series of EPs, and we did the ballsy EP, and there was a ton of focus, like on the Terminator films. And then we did the fantastic, was anything Conan related. And then we did the unbelievable, which is all of the comedy exploitations. And then for the fourth, our plan was to do all of the post-Governor movie films that he created, like Escape Plan and see, I can't even think of them right now. What are some of the others?
Expendables.
Well, right.
That was
more, like Cameo, right?
Yeah.
What is in there?
Yeah. Then you got The Last Stand, Escape Plans, basically all of the straight to Netflix and what have you DVDs.
Exactly.
And so then there's Terminator Genesis, which isn't even really him. It's really just a CGI him.
Right.
So you can't even call it that. I don't know.
So we started looking at this and we were thinking, do we even need to restore integrity to these ancient tales that he bastardized from Austrian folklore? And the answer we came to is no. We decided we're not even going to invest the time. We're going to go back. I won't expose what we're going to do next. But we canceled it. We weren't even going to do it because there is a belief that nobody really, you don't see people running around quoting Escape Plan, Or
I don't think I know anyone that's watched that.
Exactly. The Last Stand. That's another one. The Last Stand. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Nobody. But if you go back, all right, what was the last one that people? That was about a zombie.
Really? He did a zombie movie?
He did a zombie movie. It is about his daughter, but it's more like a virus. It's the idea of being a zombie stems from being, contracting the disease, and his daughter gets it, and he hides her. He cannot stand because he's supposed to kill immediately any family members that contract this disease, right? Because they're going to become flesh-eating, monsters.
Right.
And that's the whole story. So he's all somber, and it's very depressing. because it's all about his daughter and his cherished memories of her and how now she's doomed, right? But he cannot kill her because, he wants to protect her because he's the father. Can't say I recommend it. And that's another one. I wouldn't. Can you imagine an action-adventure, hardcore rock and roll song by ArnoCorps about being sad about your daughter having a deadly disease? Forget about it.
No, as much as I love ArnoCorps, I don't know if I would want to hear it.
Right. So you're never going to. We're not doing it.
Okay, well that takes care of that, I guess.
But hey, we did Jingle All the Way.
Yes, you
Are you
did.
familiar with the ArnoCorps song Jingle All the Way?
You know I am.
Can you hear that bane? My computer is sending me alerts. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, I can't hear anything.
Okay, good.
If it pleases the court of ArnoCorps, I would like to play that song at the end of the episode.
Absolutely, do it.
All right, you heard it, Spreaker. We have permission from the artist.
Absolutely, I wrote that goddamn song.
All right. Well, if you haven't noticed by now, we are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture, whether it's a video game, a band that just plays something out of the ordinary, like we have as our guest today, and the Beastie Boys a couple of weeks ago. We do also have even strange movies such as the one we are about to reveal now. You can support us by either just simply checking out the program on any platform that you get your podcasts, or if you want to do it or if you want to put your money where our mouths are, you could head on over to patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. You could give us as little as $1. You can give us 10,000 smackers, and we'll be forced into reviewing the Lulu Metallica collaboration with Lou Reed album.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Whatever you give is great, and that gives you access to the Discord server, so you can pretty much just make fun of us all the time and just rip on us, and we have no choice. Or you could take a look at our schedule and see what's coming. Or you could just have a normal conversation and tell us to have a nice day. And that would just be fine and dandy. But we know that's not what you're thinking. But long story short, you could also find us on social media. You could find us on South African Twitter, which is fine, I guess. We don't really use it too much anyway. We didn't before when it was regular Twitter. But you could also find us on Facebook. And that is typically where we get the strangest things. We get people such as...
How I found you.
Exactly.
I found you on Facebook.
Yes, you did.
I heard you do a podcast about my band, and you guys got all kinds of things wrong. So I contacted you. I said, do you want to know why ArnoCorps exists? Well, all you had to do was ask. I could tell you right now. And here we are today.
Exactly. Yeah. And every once in a while, some guy named Muhammad sends us weird pictures of strange things and tags us. It's great. So, Muhammad, if you're listening, hats off to you.
All right, Muhammad.
Let's go, Muhammad.
Weird pictures.
Can we get a Let's Go, Muhammad chant going?
Let's go, Muhammad.
Let's go, Muhammad. Let's go, Muhammad.
Let's go, Muhammad. All right.
All right. Well, that's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues, so let's get on with the goddamn show. Let's get to Jingle All the Way. Let's jingle our little and big hearts out. All right.
I have to tell you guys, I haven't heard your last episode. You did the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, we did.
I'm going to listen to that because I recently read their book, and it is terrific, and I highly recommend you read the Beastie Boys book.
Oh, that is on my Amazon wish list.
The hardback, mate. It is, I will tell you, it was the best reading experience of my life, reading the Beastie Boys book. It was terrific. I loved it. So I highly recommend it. I'll listen to your podcast.
All right, and then you could tell us what else we got wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Then I'm gonna find you on Facebook again, and I'll be like, "Come on, What do you mean the Beastie Boys only towards Ireland? That's wrong.
And then you're gonna make connections, and you're gonna get Mike D to scream at us on the air.
Exactly.
Or worse, Mike D
Right.
might be the guy to give us $10,000, so we have to review the Lulu album.
Hey, if that happens, I will review it with you.
All right.
All
I've
right,
never even heard it.
the stakes
but-
have been raised. Neither
Exactly.
have we. But Mike D, please don't listen. Please don't listen to this and give us $10,000. Please don't do that.
Right. It's unlikely you're going to hear from Mike D because I don't know if you guys are familiar with skateboard. Are you skateboarders by any chance?
Back in the day, yes, I did.
I always
You remember-
tried but failed.
Did either you see the Plan B video when
That's-
that came out?
That was the best. I still watch that video.
Well, you remember Mike Carroll? He had the Beastie Boys as part of his part. That actually was a huge part of, Beastie Boys coming back into, popularity with, like, the underground, with the punk community. Because before that, there were Capitol Records and all that. And then suddenly they're on the Plan B skateboard video, right, from Mike Carroll. And it's this great, terrific street skating part. Well, recently, Mike Carroll, who was quiet back then, now he is on like Instagram live streaming interviews with people and all that. And he was talking about that. And he talked about how they got an early copy of Check Your Head. That it wasn't out yet, but he really liked it. He wouldn't stop listening to it. So he put it in the video without asking. And the video premiered before Check Your Head had come out.
Oh no.
Oh no.
And he still, to this day, he's never even met the Beastie Boys, which I thought was crazy. Because Mike Carroll's putting that in that skate video, which was at the time absolutely revolutionary. And it was like everybody was watching that every day before they would go skate. And it was just a big deal. And Beastie Boy, I think he put 2 tracks from Check Your Head on the video.
I'm
But I
surprised
think
that
it's
there wasn't like a cease and desist or anything.
Well, I think because the Beastie Boys are skateboarders, so I think they thought it was cool.
Yeah, well,
But
I
you
don't
would
mean the
think
Beastie
that-
Boys. I mean, you would think
Right.
that, like, the legal department
know,
of, like, the label or
right?
something. Like, 'cause
Exactly. I
it's
know,
like-
that was crazy. They never heard a thing. There was
that's
nothing.
great. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess also the legal department, like, wasn't paying attention to, like, the skateboard videos. So, like, if the Beastie
Because
Boys heard it or saw it, they would probably be like, oh, this is friggin' awesome. Like, why
Right.
not? And if anything, like, they're going to like it. People are going to listen to this. They're going to like it. They're going to
Right.
find out that it's from the new album anyway. So, like,
Right. It wasn't
That'll
on the
get
radar
sales.
because back then, I mean, this is pre-X Games. This is pre-Tony Hawk video games, right? So this is when skateboarding was in this sort of still somewhat underground place where there was still, millions around the world skating, but not at the level of, what it is now in terms of mainstream acceptance and all that. Maybe even not even millions of skaters at the time. Probably, maybe even just tens of thousands at the time. I don't know.
at best, maybe 1 million.
Right.
But
Because globally. Because, I mean, even the skateboard magazines they couldn't even get ads during that time. They were getting like Thrasher and Transworld were getting skinny.
yeah.
Anyway, huge tangent. But anyway, I saw you did Beastie Boys, and I think they're terrific. The book was fantastic, and you can expect to not hear from them or their lawyers.
That's awesome.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead and play the tracks. Forget about it.
Yeah, right?
Before they even... well, there's no new Beastie Boys, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No. Well, we'll have to find a hidden bonus gem somewhere.
Exactly. I wonder. I would love to hear like earlier mixes, maybe of songs.
I would love to just. I would love to just like go to Rick Rubin's vault, because he must have so much stuff that we'll never hear.
Right. Did you know that Rick Rubin was a huge pro wrestling fan?
Oh yeah, he owned part of Smoky Mountain.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think.
Holy shit.
I know. Yeah, because I've heard Cornette talk about this a few times. That like Rick Rubin was like, he was either a part owner or he was at least like a pretty big investor in it.
It's wild. It goes deeper than I even realized.
Yeah,
but
he was
anyway,
recently on Rogan, and he was talking about how he watches like 8 hours of wrestling per week because he watches like every single promotion.
That must have driven Rogan crazy, because he doesn't like pro wrestling.
No, he was trying to get him, on board, and he was like, okay, I'll have to come to a show with you. He's like, no, you have to come. He's like, no, don't come to the show. Like, just come to my house and just like watch it with me. he's like, but wouldn't it be? And he's like, well, wouldn't it be better to watch it live? And he's like, well, no, it's actually better if you just watch it at home, because you can't hear the commentary because the commentary is so bad.
That's a good point.
It is, because I'll end this tangent soon so we can start talking about the actual movie. But like,
this stuff's important.
It is important, but it's like it's like the thing that always struck me hilarious about the commentary is how like wildly over the top they are, and how this has been their job and their world for many years. So at this point, you'd think that they would be used to someone basically committing a major felony every 20 minutes. And they act as if this is the first time that they've ever seen something like this in their lives. And they're just like, oh my God, why would he do such a thing? And he just hit this guy's wife with a chair. What a sick son of a bitch. And it's like, yeah, the last guy did that like 15 minutes ago.
This happens every day of work for you.
Yeah, like at this point, a normal person would be like, all right, here we go with the chair. What a big surprise. Who's putting the chairs under the ring? Why would you do that? Can we just get a guy who checks the chairs every 5 minutes?
No, it'd be fun. Are you familiar with honest movie trailers?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Imagine honest wrestling commentators. Right? It's like, hey, here comes this formulaic, approach. There, he's going to do that again. Oh, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. It's like, oh, big surprise. This guy who can't be trusted is extending his hand. I guarantee. I'd be surprised if he keeps his word. Or like, you'd get the most boring commentary possible, because they'd be so jaded. And they'd also be so like desensitized to everything going on.
Exactly.
It would just be like, oh, here he comes to the chair. Oh boy.
Right. Oh, before we move on, the reason I brought up Rick Rubin being a wrestling fan is they talk about in the Beastie Boys book that it was his idea to make the Beastie Boys, when they did License to Ill, sort of like heels. Like they were these frat party asshole characters. It was all his idea. He's like, yo, you gotta be this persona, and that was the pro wrestling influence right there.
Huh. Cool.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Because I always wondered, why they did that when they first came out, and then later on they totally flip they're big time into charity work and feminism and all these righteous heroic values.
Yeah.
Where when they first came out, they were complete. Their whole shtick was be these asshole party guys.
Yeah.
But that was Rick Rubin. That was his whole plan, which worked, right?
Yeah. I love it because it's easier when you start them off as a heel, because like once you get them to hate you, it's like the minute that you turn the other way, they're gonna love you.
Right, exactly.
If you do it right.
Cathartic.
Yeah.
It was a perfect face turn.
Yeah.
All right, so jingle all the way.
All right, jingle all the way. Come on.
Breaking the sound barriers.
Yeah.
What I'm here for.
All right. So basically, Arnold Schwarzenegger is this guy, Howard Langston, who, like you said, it does humanize him because he's just a mattress salesman. Like
Right.
the missus was, like when we were watching it, the missus was, what was pointing out, she was like, well, doesn't he own the company or whatever? Like she had assumed that he was, like, a big deal at the company, and that's why he's always missing everything. And I was like, he never mentions, like, being the head of the company or anything like that you'd expect him to be in, like, any of his action movies, where he's just a regular sales guy, just like, who's, probably very good at his job, but he's a simple mattress salesman. And you also have you have Sinbad, who is the rival father, as Myron, who is the postman, and they're both, long story short, they're both not really the best dads. Sinbad, it just seems like he's just gone on, like, a constant string of bad luck, and he's also kind of nuts. Where Arnold, it just kind of seems like he's just a pretty neglectful workaholic, and he's kind of a bad dad and a bad husband in that way. Like, yes, he's trying to provide, but he's he's just neglecting his entire family just for the sake of working, and he, like, doesn't realize how wrapped up he is, which is commentary on, well, Americans anyway.
Right.
And he figures, okay, well, the best way that I can make up for everything is by being a super dad and getting my kid the thing that he wants. Not realizing that, and of course he lies to his wife constantly throughout the movie, which is also not good. But he tells her, yeah, I got the kid. Yeah, I got him the toy, like, weeks ago. It's fine. Not, like, meanwhile, he didn't. And it just so happens, because he's not paying attention and he's not really that active in his kid's life because he's working all the time, that this is the hottest toy, like, in years.
Terrible, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. If you look at this movie from a certain point of view, it has as much social commentary as Total Recall.
It is very good with the social commentary.
Right? Yeah. And I think it's lost on a lot of people. They just take it at face value. I watched some reviews, and it was like, people don't even get this. They don't get that it's intentionally absurd. I mean, there's this one guy reviewing it and showing clips, and afterwards he would mock, like, whatever the scene was. And it's like, get out of here. I mean, it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be absurd and ridiculous. I mean, that's the whole point. So I think it's one of those things that some people aren't, I don't think, seeing the way it was intended to be viewed.
The more I watch this movie, and, like, I've watched this every year consistently for probably, 10, 15 years. Originally, I would watch it on Black Friday because, to me, this opened the floodgates for all of the Christmas shopping, which, what better day to do it than Black Friday? I even considered it a Black Friday movie for many years, where now it's become this is what we're watching when we put up the Christmas tree movie. So it still it still starts off my official Christmas swing, but but a little bit further down the road. But every time I watch this movie, there's more and more that I collect from it that I didn't see the last time. It is.
There's a lot of cynicism going on in this.
It's great. And then you have the third father, which we haven't even gotten to yet, which is Phil Hartman. And I want to say this may have been his last role.
This was, in fact, his last movie, his last film.
Wow.
From what Wikipedia said, it was the last movie that was released while he was still alive.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple more, but he had already passed away.
Okay.
Right.
Well, anyway.
So it's the last one that he saw.
Yes. Well, rest in peace, Phil Hartman.
He is terrific.
He really is. He is hysterical. But this time around, I noticed more about his character and his family dynamic, which is interesting because you have him, who's a rival for a different reason. Sinbad and Myron and Howard are both trying to get the Turbo Man toy, where where Ted, Phil Hartman's character, he's trying to get Howard's wife.
Yeah.
And pretty much every other mother
wife,
pretty much everybody's wife. No one's wife is safe from this man, whether you're married or not. Which
he's working it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think he prefers married women.
I think he does.
I don't think he's interested at all in single women. He's absolutely about, targeting these housewives that are feeling
he is specific
they have a
to the housewives.
Workaholic. Right, exactly. That have workaholic fathers or husbands.
Yes, but and I'm guessing that the movie and we know that he's divorced because his son says it a little later in the movie where he's like, it would be really great if your parents got divorced because it did wonders for my dad. Where it's a funny.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a funny line, but it's like, oh wait, there's something there. Yeah, it is depressing, and the kid doesn't realize how much it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But what I noticed from there's that line, and then there's Ted's behavior, and that leads me to believe that the reason for his divorce is infidelity. So either this is either Ted was a major horn dog the whole time and couldn't keep himself to his wife or himself, or his wife had an affair or many affairs, and he's and this is his way of taking it out on the world. It's well, if it happened to me, I'm gonna. Well, the only reason that I thought about that was because I went to high school with someone who had a situation like that. They got this person and their ex spouse. They got married too early, way too early, 22 and 24 or something like that. This was my friend's first, the first person that they had really been intimate with. And this person and the person that they were with, they had this whole thing. They got involved in a biker gang and all kinds of Sons of Anarchy shit. Yeah, no, it's never just with me. It's
movie.
Yeah, with me, it's never just it's never just this happened and it didn't work out. There's always something crazy going on.
So they get involved with the biker, the Hells Angels.
Yeah, so this person couldn't. So this person just had a slew of problems of their own, and the other one ended up going crazy because they were already not really in the best headspace to begin with, and and now just it was not good. It was water and oil, not good. They ended up separating and getting divorced and what have you, and this person now, well, I haven't talked to this person in a very long time, but the last that I had spoken to this person, they were all hell-bent on just extracting their revenge on the world, so they were sleeping with as many people in other relationships as they could, just to exact their revenge on the world. So
I think you're onto something right there. I hadn't thought of that, but that's possible. Perfect motivation for Ted.
Yes, if that's the case, or
his vile deeds.
Yes, it's either that or Ted could not stop, and he was Ted got divorced because Ted was just a major horn dog. It's one of the two.
Exactly. You made me realize, though, what the parallel between Ted and Howard is, because they're both salesmen in a certain point of view, because Howard, of course, is professionally trying to sell all the time. He's telling people, don't you forget, you're my number one customer. He's kissing ass, right? He's trying to make everybody feel
that.
Exactly. But he's trying to, he's manipulating to a certain extent. Right? Because to get what he wants, which is the sale, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have Ted, who is doing the same thing, putting on this act of being the nice guy. Oh, I'll come over there. I'll help you finish the cookies or whatever. And what's funny is you have a little...
I never picked up on, so this is great.
They give you a clue that this is all phony. Because remember, after Howard's wife goes to take a shower, and he's in the kitchen by himself, and the kids start making a bunch of noise, as soon as there's no female around that he's trying to impress, or husband that he's trying to keep at bay or whatever, as soon as they're all gone, it's just the kids, he yells at them. He's like, like he showed his true self.
Yes.
Yeah.
You remember that part?
Yes. Yeah. He does immediately scream at them.
Right. So it shows that, this uber nice guy, this is an act. This is all to manipulate. This is all to make the sale and getting these ladies in his bed.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
So maybe that's why there's even more tension between Ted and Howard, because they know what the other does in a way.
He's like a serial marriage killer too, because he's literally he's flirting with all the women in the neighborhood, and they clearly all are in love with him. All the other women. Not
only Howard's wife is the one that's not falling for it.
Yeah.
Until she wants to kind of make Howard angry. Then she's like, oh, don't worry, Ted will drive us.
Yeah.
And she only did that out of spite. She has no interest. She knows he's a slime ball.
Yeah. She's kind of I don't have any kids just yet. If we do end up having kids, but I hear it from other people who have children and where and the kids go to school and the kids are of school age. So now the kids, of course, have their friends and everything. And sometimes when I'm talking to my parents about it, they'll say it too, where it's like, we really didn't like their parents, and we kind of were hoping that you'd stop being friends with that person eventually because we really thought that their parents were assholes. But, we did it for you, which this is kind of that situation where she's like, I really hope that Jamie eventually stops hanging out with, what the hell is the other kid's name? Like Brandon or something like that? Or he says it, but I forget the kid's name. Johnny's Tree. That's what it is. Johnny.
Right.
Yeah.
Johnny.
So he's like, you could tell that she's just gotta really hope that they're not friends anymore at some point.
Right. Exactly.
Because also, Johnny's not Johnny's kind of a dick.
Yeah, he's a spoiled brat.
He is a spoiled brat.
Yeah, he's spoiled.
Which is really just, probably all that, Ted has just done ever since the divorce, or even possibly before it, just so that he could, make it seem, so that he could further manipulate the kid. Back to manipulation about how I'm the best dad, and maybe he manipulated the judge by saying, look at how much my kid loves me, I should have full custody. We have no idea. That's a part of the story that we don't know. So, so I think Ted is way more sinister than the movie lets on, and I would have been interested to see a little bit more of that side now that I'm really thinking about it. But we also have Myron, who is probably the most real person in the whole movie. He's crazy, but he is kind of more of a product of his environment.
Also, he works at the post office.
Yes,
so,
and yeah,
I love how he uses that as an excuse or a sort of validation of the fact that he can do something absolutely dangerous and deadly, and he's unpredictable.
Yeah.
So look me, I work at the post office.
Yes, you know I'm at
And there's a lot of good things going on in here. Yeah. And his stories, his anger, Sinbad's anger towards his father, he talks about that, how he never... I love... My favorite part, I think, is whenever Arnold's character, Howard, is trying to explain to him where he's kind of going wrong with his child. And you're expecting your buddy that, you're just talking over a beer. Your buddy's supposed to say, oh, don't worry about it. No, kids are tough, we'll be all right. Instead, Sinbad's character just goes, oh, yeah, absolutely, your kid's going to need therapy. You're screwing him up. I thought that was great. He's very honest and very down to earth.
Yeah.
He's the only one that's not trying to make a sale.
You're right.
He's
legitimately just trying to be a good dad.
Yeah.
He's legitimately trying to not screw up this time. He's trying to show his kid, listen, I'm not he clearly has a strained relationship with his son, and he's like, listen, I really need this.
Right.
Yes.
Like, that's really the whole point. He's like, I really need this. And he brings up the story about how the rich kid up the street, got the
Johnny 7 OMA.
Got the Johnny 7 OMA. Thank you. And how he never got one because his dad just let him down. But the rich kid up the street who got it ended up being a CEO. And obviously there's more reasons as to why he became the CEO of this big company, other than he got the toy. But
in his minds, that was the difference maker.
Exactly.
Right there, at Christmas, what was under the tree dictated the whole rest of their lives.
Yeah.
What they would be able to accomplish in life. The potential.
I could see how somebody would have that mentality where, that's, they were really just hoping that their dad would just do something for once.
Yeah.
And, and you don't know what it does to their self-esteem and everything as they, get on, where it's it's definitely a confidence hit, because if you're clearly he's not confident, he clearly has low self-esteem, and, he's like, if my dad was a little bit better, maybe I would have become a better person. That's what he's really trying to say, but he can't find the words.
Well, and that's the Johnny 7 OMA gun in his mind is the prime symbol of his dad letting him down.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he didn't get that gun, and now he's associating it with the other guy who was really successful, and he got the gun. It's it wasn't successful because his dad got on the Johnny 7 OMA. He was successful because his dad listened to him and was supportive of him, and did things with him.
And he's trying to be like that. He wants to not repeat the mistakes that his own father made.
Right.
Which is very heroic. So it's ironic that he actually becomes sort of the villain character.
Yes, I was going to say that it is interesting and ironic how it shoots it, how the movie is shot in a way where Howard is supposed to be the big hero and Sinbad is supposed to be the villain here. But first of all, the real villain is Ted. Let's be honest. And second,
exactly.
And second,
absolutely.
The hero, there isn't really a hero. It's really just the most likable character and the best, the one with the best heart, even though he's crazy. But the man works at the post office. What are you going to do? It's Myron. Myron is the only genuine character in the movie. Where you got the bad Santa crew, which we'll get to. You've got everybody who's everybody from the store clerks to the guy doing the radio promotion. Everyone else is disingenuous, where Myron is the only person who's actually he's just trying to just do the right thing. He's the only person who he's the only one who has the real Christmas spirit.
Yes.
But he gets caught up in the minutia too, just because of the circumstance. He's constantly a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wanted to read to you guys. I watched the honest trailer for Jingle All the Way. And you know how they do the voiceover? Yeah. And they're making commentary. I love the opening. So it says, "It's a wonderful life, proved that everyone has value. Home Alone showed everyone why we shouldn't take family for granted. But one holiday film will teach us Christmas turns everyone into an asshole. Jingle all the way. And I thought it was a good point because there really is no good guy until, because even Sinbad's character, who in the beginning he's genuine, but he becomes a villain, and Arnold is anything but genuine until the very end. Yes. Very, very small amount of time he has that revelation that, hey, I can be impressive and caring about my kid for real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's true.
That's it. So it kind of shows like the character development of the two characters, because Myron being the most genuine and the one that's literally, he's like just struggling to make his kid happy and proud. He gets rewarded in the end because, even though he gets defeated, Jake Lloyd, who is Jamie the kid, gives him the Turbo Man doll so he can give it to his son, right?
Right.
And then Howard, he doesn't get a reward, but he learns a lesson that his son, all he wants is him to be a dad to him and be like his hero. And so that's how to not make him and Howard kind of learns okay, it's not the toy that's gonna make him successful. It's just me being there as a dad kind of thing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Which is a terrific message. I mean, I feel like this movie is successful at that end scene.
Yes.
Where he says, Jamie, your daddy's not mad at you. He loves you more than anything in the whole wide world. And Jake Lloyd is just like, how do you know all this? And he's like, who would know better than me? And he takes out, it gives me goosebumps. I think that was, it sounds cheesy because it's in the context of this obscure film. Mm-hmm. But the sentiment of that is really cool.
It is. That always gets my dad too, actually.
Right. That's what I tried to capture when we did the song. Jingle All the Way. We wanted it to be really about, because a lot of our listeners are parents now. And we wanted it to be one of those songs that they can listen to with their kid and go, come on, I'm your Turbo Man. You can always depend on me.
You gonna tell your kid to call you to call you Turbo Man, Rob?
No, I don't know.
Hey, I should mention on the topic of kids, I believe that this movie and the original ancient Alpine tale that I was raised on in Austria was instrumental in helping me make the conscious choice to never have children.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say, by the way, me and my wife haven't told anyone yet, but we're going to have...
I never wanted kids, but when you watch this movie, I feel like that is the right choice, because can you imagine if I had to be running late all the time, trying to make to karate practice, getting pulled over by the cops? You're getting punished for being a parent, let me tell you. But I shouldn't say that. Many of my bandmates have children and all that, and they are fantastic, and all their kids are named Junior. And,
as they should, boy or girl.
Right. If you have a boy, his name is Junior. If you have a girl, your name is Junior. This is the Alpine way. So, no disrespect to my fantastic bandmates who are the greatest fathers and Turbo Men of all time. But for me, this film depicts, for anybody that's on the fence thinking, maybe I don't want to be a father, you can watch this and go, yeah. Let's avoid this whole deal.
Yeah. Well, and the scene where he's in the diner and he looks over at Myron and then he imagines his son in Myron's position, being and it's here's to you, Dad, and he takes a drink of the whiskey, that's the ultimate okay, if you're a dad, that's what your worst fear is that your kid's gonna grow up and be messed up because something you did, you screwed them up. You didn't raise them right, and they turned to be, a drug.
Exactly. You know what?
Well, I mean, just as long as they don't work for the post office, I think you're doing all right.
That reminded me of that scene in The Christmas Story where Ralphie is blind and he comes back home to visit.
Oh, yeah.
All right. It's kind of like that scene. It reminds me.
It is. But the thing that, of course, makes people go the other way and not really like take a look at the deeper meaning of the movie is just all of the absurd hijinks that they go through just trying to get this toy, which I have no idea I have no idea what it's like to be shopping for the last thing on Christmas Eve, but my dad has attested that it really was like war, and war is hell. And so is Burma, and Burma is a war zone. So there you go. But he's told me this like over times. Like sometimes we watch the movie and he's like, "Oh God, I'm getting flashbacks from '98 or like something," and it's like, I'm like, it really wasn't that bad. And he's like, "Oh no," he's like, "Do you remember?" He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "Do you remember that Undertaker you wanted?" I'm like, "Well, which one?" He's like, "The one with the," I'm like, "You mean the motorcycle one with the jacket and everything?" He's like, "Yes." He's like, "Let me tell you, you could not get that anywhere." He's like, I'm like, "But you got it for me." And he's like, "I found that by accident."
Wow.
He's like, "That year, I found that toy by accident. I went for work." He's like, he was like, "I went out to work." He's like, "I went out for my lunch break for work, and I just happened to go into a Rite Aid, and that Rite Aid happened to have that toy."
Like your father already. I hope I meet your father someday. This guy sounds ballsy.
He's interesting.
You can always depend on him.
I'll tell him you said that.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I revealed on the Jello Biafra podcast that I hadn't talked about before, because everyone knows I'm from Austria because of my mother, but my father is in fact from Brooklyn, New York.
Is he really?
Exactly.
Wow.
And what's funny is he has not lost his accent all these years.
Yeah, I bet.
But he is a Brooklyn brawler, the real deal.
Cool.
So that's why we get along. Everybody, it's funny because I live here in California, but many times, many of my friends are from back east. And everybody tells me that's because of your father being from New York. You just connect with people from back east. Hey, I'll take it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we're on this podcast right now.
That is.
I get you guys.
Yeah. That explains why we can break balls so easily, and this is the second time that we've hung out. I guess we could call it a hangout.
Right?
And we've never met.
Virtual. No.
In person. Not yet.
Someday. I'm confident it'll happen at some point.
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
Chris, I know you were going to be out here. Or were you?
Yes.
And you were asking me if ArnoCorps was going to play in L.A.
Yes, I was in L.A. for my company's holiday party this week. It was very cool. It was also very weird to meet your coworkers for the first time in 2 years. And everyone is 3D and we're live and in color. And it's just...
it's a crazy time we're in right now.
I got a little carried away with some drinks, but I just got excited. I forgot how I was. Like all of my synapses were firing on all cylinders. It was it was such a blast just meeting all people. It was just so crazy and so fun, and I didn't realize how much I had taken. I never realized how much I had taken people in general for granted. Like,
yeah,
I really missed people. It gave me the spirit of Christmas, I guess.
Exactly. All right. That's how you know what? It's funny you mentioned because this year, ArnoCorps has only performed 4 times. And of course, before that, 2 years hiatus, which was planned, but coincided with the pandemic. And I've noticed that all 4, the atmosphere is so festive and everyone is so happy. It's just so much positivity. And I think it is partly because people missed being around other people. And in particular, when you're at an ArnoCorps show, you basically know that anybody that's there knows what is best in life. So everyone becomes instant friends, and it's so cool how many friendships have been made at our shows, and I imagine this year is no different because all four, it's just really cool, and I could see that being the same thing with a company party like that, where you have these people that all work for the same company, been working together on different projects, but have not actually shared physical space. Been in the same room. That's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I gotta say, it was really great, and it was I thought that there would be more awkward points into like speaking with people or like introducing myself, but the
energy was there.
The energy was totally there, and they everybody just felt like your long lost best friend that you haven't talked to in
That's
10
cool.
years or whatever, and it was
That's
just
really cool.
Yeah, it was the best. I don't know how else to describe it. It really was the best. Even just working in an office again was weird, but it was kind of nice. Now, I'm not saying that I would go back to this full time for any CEO of listening.
Just so you know.
Just so you know, I liked doing this every once in a while. I would not do this every day, 300 and whatever days a year. But every couple of months, yeah, I can do this for a couple of days to break up the monotony.
Yeah.
At best, if I had a hybrid setting where I actually could go into an office, the most you'd see me in there is 2 days a week. But
it's perfect. Come on, get serious. 2 more.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly do a full 5-day week in an office ever again.
I haven't done that in many, many years.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
I can't remember the last time. I did that probably the last time 5 days a week in an office was probably 2003.
Wow.
So it's been a long time for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this whole pandemic, I was already, prepared.
Oh, yeah.
I was already working from home, doing the thing. The only thing that was crazy because ArnoCorps announced we were going on hiatus at the end of 2019, right around November. And then a couple months later, COVID-19. And it's crazy because at that point, every band had to go on hiatus, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And it was great. I almost felt guilty that we had this big blowout going away party, essentially, because we announced, hey, this is the last one for who knows. It was indefinite hiatus. I just knew I needed a break because I'd been doing it for 20 years. So I'm just going to go away. We'll come back when we feel like it. And so we had this blowout party. It was sold out, packed, everybody wearing their ArnoCorps face paint. It was just the best. And I felt so bad for all the other bands that just cut off. It's over.
Yeah.
You no more gigs. All venues closed. And, not having that opportunity to kind of make that as a choice.
Yeah. And there was a couple of bands that tried to do those outdoor shows where people were in their cars.
Right.
And it wasn't.
I didn't want to do
It's
any
not
of
the
that.
same.
It wasn't.
It's just like wrestling when they put up the video screens
Yeah.
for the crowd, which was absurd to me.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
I actually liked it better without them.
Yeah, it was better
exactly.
at the stadium.
Right. Absolutely. But for me, pro wrestling, for me, has always been something unique in terms of theater and performance where the crowd can dictate what the performers are doing based on how they react to what you're doing. Nothing else is that way. All theater, it's not theater because in theater, it's scripted, start to finish. There's no changes. If the crowd doesn't applaud, you're still going to do your next line. But in wrestling, if something's getting over, that's going to change the storylines. They might even change that exact match, the way what they do next. And that is the beauty of the whole, if you want to call it a sport or performance or whatever. So when they took out that component of the crowd, I was like completely not interested. The magic was gone.
Yeah. It was AEW, I think, did the right thing by having like the people from the locker room, so they at least had like somebody out there, you know.
True, that's true.
But yeah, the screen thing was just so weird, and
half the time there were people like just posting up like weird images on the screen anyway.
Yeah.
Like there was like wasn't there one guy who like had his profile set to Chris Benoit?
I think so. Yeah,
Like,
I heard about that.
I remember reading about that.
they had to start like screening the people that they allowed to like go on the screens to make sure they weren't going to like put up some kind of vulgar sign or where.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, who's going to stop you?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, even if you're up there for like 10 seconds, like,
right,
and they just missed you, like a sponsor might not.
Right.
So you got to be careful about that, and you can't trust people on the internet on the honor system. You really can't.
We learned that years ago.
Yes, we learned that from when the internet was born.
Right, immediately.
Just instant. The first person who signed on, if they were a normal person, the second person who signed on was a troll. There's.
Exactly. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys something. Do you think that George Lucas, when he saw Jingle All the Way, and he's trying to cast the young Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, you think that part of the decision was like, wow, who better to cast than the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Turbo Man? Like, this guy is the offspring of Turbo Man. Yeah. That would be perfect. And then I put him in my movie, and then whenever people ask who the father is, we act like we don't know. But Lucas is thinking, I do know, goddammit. It's that goddamn Turbo Man. That's why he gets obsessed with putting on the helmet and getting the costume when he gets older.
Yeah.
Yeah, his dad's Turbo Man, so we put him in the movie.
The poor kid kind of got the short end of the stick because, I think the Phantom Menace kind of just ruined his career.
Absolutely.
It really wasn't his fault.
If you see interviews with him now, he seems like a really cool guy.
What's funny is you could blame, because, all right, we'll all agree his performance was annoying, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But his performance was identical to the performance in Jingle All the Way.
But he was good in Jingle All the Way because it made sense.
In that context, it was perfect, right? Because that was what it's supposed to be. But it's like they took the exact character of Howard Langston's boy, Jamie Langston, and put him, and we're putting you in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Exactly as you are. and that, we could only blame one man for that. Lucas did that.
Yes. If you ever watch the Phantom Menace, the making of documentary, which I highly recommend because the movie has just aged so badly that that this documentary it's inadvertently become a mockumentary because everyone's so excited and everyone's mostly hyped up for this, and George Lucas is more hyped up than he needs to be, and you can see exactly how and why this movie went wrong from the start. This never was on the rails,
right?
And it's just so funny to watch, and the part
I need to watch that.
It's so funny.
I watched it when the movie, the DVD came out. I watched the making of, but I haven't watched it since. But you're making it.
You have to go back and watch it now.
All these years later, and knowing the way over time, how poorly this movie holds up in the grand scheme, that the this making of documentary where everybody's pumped up like they're making the greatest film of all time.
It's so funny now.
Hilarious.
No, it's so bad. Like, he goes up to the guy who's like Jar Jar, and he's like, and like George Lucas is like, we're going to make your career. You're going to be a big star. Everyone's going to love Jar Jar. And this guy, and then he's just, like, cuts to just him, and he's like, this is going to be the best performance of my life. And you're just like, oh, no. Oh, you're going to regret that in 6 months. And it's,
the
and like,
the thing was about The Phantom Menace is that it had such potential. It could have been a great movie if George Lucas was not directing it.
yeah,
Exactly.
Well, it's not even
like the producer.
No. It's not even George Lucas. The problem is everyone around him, and you see this if you watch it. Everyone around him is in such awe of him from growing up watching the Star Wars movies after all these years. No one tells him no, and George Lucas needs an editor because. It'll show, like, when he gets the CGI thing, he's like it shows him on the storyboards, and he's like, okay, the pink, he's like, okay, so everything in green is gonna be, it's all gonna be live action, and everything is pink is gonna be CGI, and and like 90% of the board is pink with the CGI, and you're like, oh god. And, like, everyone around is like, oh, I think that's a great idea. And like, we watching it now are like, I don't think that's a right sentence, but us watching it now, we're just like, oh, God, no. Somebody do something.
Which is completely the opposite. If you watch any of the archival behind-the-scenes stuff with Star Wars, the first one, before it was called New Hope, everybody was second guessing him constantly. All the actors had doubts that this was even going to be released. Like they felt like this
thought that this was going to suck.
Terrible.
The first
and
one.
They were questioning all there's footage I don't know if you ever seen where Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, they're on some talk show and they're talking about, and this is in the 70s. And they're talking about the movie and they're promoting whatever. It had already come out, and now it's already becoming this huge hit. And everybody's talking about, what was it like to make this movie? Did you know it was going to be so fantastic and such a hit? And they're like, oh, God, no. The dialogue that George wrote was horrific. We changed it. So, like, the actors were giving him shit, and he had no clout yet, except for, he had done... It's the movie American Graffiti.
Yeah.
But that was so different. That his success with that film doesn't. I mean, how do you make the stretch that you know anything about doing a science fiction movie? So, yeah, it was funny to watch that interview now, where the actors are laughing amongst each other, mocking George for his terrible dialogue, and then fast forward to when he's doing Phantom Menace, and everybody's like, "You're a genius!" and everything he suggested was considered,
Yeah, like there's a part where he's like he's showing Steven Spielberg like just things from the set, and he's like showing him the battle droid, and like Spielberg is like looking at it, he's like, oh yeah, this is an interesting design, and he's like, oh, you're looking at it backwards, and it's like, like no, like it constantly gets funnier, just thanks to time. Thanks to time and poorly aged things. I watch it to laugh sometimes. Like this is something that I watch if I'm like really down, and I know that this can pull me out of a slump. That's how absurd it is. But what I was getting to was it shows the audition for the role of Anakin Skywalker, and there's like it's their last 3 kids, or the kids that they're going through, and like there's the casting director. And there's George Lucas, and there's Natalie Portman. Like the original audition read is with Natalie Portman because they're doing the Padme connection thing. And there's one kid. There's 3 kids. There's one kid who's terrible, just flat out. No, this kid might never work again in Hollywood or elsewhere. they're
And now
gonna
he's all grown up.
they're gonna get a
So,
job at he's probably on an assembly line at a glue factory or something.
Oh, no.
This kid couldn't do it. And then you got the other kid who is perfect. He looks like he could be. He looks like he could be
Evil.
Yeah, he looks like he could be evil but good. He looks the part perfectly, and the kid is like classically trained or whatever, as classically trained as a kid could be. Like, this is a kid whose parents were like, our son is going to be a major actor no matter what.
Right.
This poor kid, his parents must be absolutely out of their mind and has no regard for what he wants, but this kid is damn good, and he reads the part, and there's this big connection. The whole, the crew starts applauding the kid. Natalie Portman is like, oh my god, he's perfect. Like, they're practically telling the kid, oh, don't worry about, and the kid is like, am I gonna,
you are the chosen one.
Yeah, the kid's like, well, I have to get a call back or something, and then they're like, oh no, you're probably gonna get it. They basically tell him, no, you're the kid. And then there's Jake Lloyd, and Jake Lloyd's read is awful. He's forgetting lines, or he's not really in it. He's not really making the connection, and it's all right, well, you were better than the first one, but the other kid clearly blows him out of the water. And then they show George Lucas, who's making the final decision, and he looks at he watches the things, and he's watching the good kid, and he's like, yeah, he's very good. He's got great chemistry. He's saying nothing but good things about this guy. And he's and then he looks at Jake Lloyd, and he's like, he has potential. We could maybe work with this, but the other kid he's just so good. And then they're like, well, all right, well, you're gonna have to pick. And he's like, okay, and it's no brainer. Jake Lloyd, and he's like, he basically just plays eeny, meeny, miny, mo, in his head, and he's like, we'll get this one. And he goes with Jake Lloyd, and, you watch, and, as you're watching, you're like, oh my god, no! Throughout the whole movie, you're just, it's so funny by accident.
Yeah.
You have to watch this. But anyway, back to Jingle All the Way.
Just in one fell swoop. That was almost as bad as when the Death Star destroys Alderaan.
Yeah.
It's that moment when Lucas decides Jake Lloyd is Anakin Skywalker. How many millions around the world were affected by the decision?
I feel bad because Jake Lloyd, it wasn't his fault.
No, he didn't do anything wrong.
No, he wasn't ready for that role yet, and Lucas put him in anyway, knowing he wasn't ready.
Yes.
Right.
And
exactly.
Because, if you look at him in Jingle All the Way, Jake Lloyd, he's not bad. He plays a regular American kid that,
is who he is. Is the kid.
Right. He plays a kid good. That's what he does. But when you put him on, a desert planet, and he's supposed to be a slave, it just doesn't work. He's not believable.
Yeah.
No.
Are you an angel?
Yeah, and part of that you have to chalk up to terrible writing too, because
exactly
the prequels were not written well.
No,
and that's just everyone has
they just haven't been written well ever since.
Personally,
with the exception of Rogue One, I will give them Rogue One.
But that's a separate thing. That's not, you can't count that as the prequels because it's not part of the Skywalker saga, quote unquote.
I don't know, whatever you want to call them.
Believe it or not, I actually will watch Phantom Menace over Attack of the Clones, because I think Attack of the Clones is even worse.
Attack of the Clones is the worst one.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. Phantom Menace has some redeeming parts. They at least have good lightsaber battles. The fight scenes are at least very good. And Liam Neeson is good.
You guys, I stumbled upon a way that you can appreciate and enjoy The Phantom Menace. And this was just on the whim because I was watching it. And I noticed, because I always, of course, like everybody else that loves Star Wars, you wanted to love it, right? Yeah. You wanted so bad. And even the first viewings were like, oh, that doesn't sit well. But you tried to focus on what was right about it.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching it just a couple years ago. And I was like, no, what I really hate about this movie is the sound. Like, what's his name? The conductor, Williams.
John Williams.
John Williams, who is brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Well, I felt like he maybe wrote the score without the movie being done. And maybe Lucas just plopped things in. I don't know. It didn't seem right. It just didn't seem his typical good stuff. So I wondered, what if I put it on mute and put on a record? So I put on this Austrian composer named Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you look him up, he's wild. He's this guy from the early 1900s composer who would do these crazy compositions that at the time there's no such thing as cinema, with sound.
Yeah,
but if you listen to it now with our ears, it sounds like the score of an action movie.
Uh-huh.
So it's really cool. If you look up Arnold Schwarzenegger,
He did a lot.
he did a
Composer,
ton.
music theorist, teacher, writer, and painter.
Right.
Wow.
But he was famous because in Austria, when his orchestra, he was conducting an orchestra, people were so offended by what he was doing because it was so unconventional and weird. He actually incited a riot.
Oh my god.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's ballsy. That is maybe the ballsiest Arnold from Austria right there.
He also had to flee to America because he
He
was
did.
targeted by the Nazis too.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, this guy.
So it's
this guy
crazy. So
led an
anyway,
interesting life. Oh wow,
Absolutely.
John Cage was one of his students.
he's absolutely fascinating. But I picked up a bunch of his stuff from Final, and so I put on Arnold Schwarzenegger and put on the Phantom Menace. It was fucking amazing.
Huh.
Like you know what I came away from Phantom Menace believing it felt like the whole movie was Darth Vader's fever dream that he had after Obi-Wan had chopped his limbs off, right? And he's nearly dead. He's burning crispy, and the Emperor takes him and he's working on him, trying to revive him and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think when he was unconscious, in his brain, what was playing was the Phantom Menace with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the soundtrack. And it's perfect. And then, so it goes from this horrible misstep by George Lucas to becoming high art. I'm telling you,
Huh.
I would never give you the wrong advices.
Yeah.
Watch it as a fever dream, put it on mute, listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you go, holy shit, this is pure genius high art right here that we're appreciating.
I will have to do that.
You heard it here first, people. I've never shared that with anybody except for a few close friends.
Wow.
Now the world can experience
How about that?
the fever dream of
Vader.
Darth Vader.
I'm gonna have to check this out.
And then suddenly it all makes sense. Like all the weirdness of Jar Jar, all the wacky characters, because it's like that. When the horrible dreams, the nightmares you would have when you have a fever.
Yeah. It really, yeah.
It's crazy.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's like that episode of Sopranos when Tony gets shot and then he becomes Kevin Finnerty and he,
Exactly. Exactly.
It's Darth Vader's version of that.
Yeah. Suddenly it all makes sense. And then you could truly enjoy it. So I'm going to watch it again that way.
I'm gonna have to try this out.
Absolutely.
I will have to find time, and I will have to make time and do this. Speaking of things that are also weird, director Christopher Columbus, who directed Jingle All the Way, who did not come to America in 1492 to sail the ocean blue. They originally wanted Joe Pesci to play Myron.
Right.
It would be an interesting choice.
It would have been an interesting
Chris
choice.
Columbus, he was a producer, not the director.
Was he was he the producer?
He was not the director.
Who
Brian
directed?
Levin.
Oh, you're right. Brian Levin was the director, and Chris Columbus was the producer. I have been corrected.
And he also altered the script. I think he is the one that put in a lot of the cynicism in the dark, sort of that.
Well, they picked
I mean,
Sinbad.
obviously,
They picked Sinbad because of his height and size, compared to Arnold. So that
weird.
thing that we were talking about in the beginning, actually, that helps humanize him. There was intent there.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Because I always thought that was weird. But I guess they didn't want to play him up. Because, that makes sense. Because otherwise, wouldn't Phil Hartman be, scared of Arnold all the time? Like, people would be intimidated. So they didn't want him to... They didn't want him to seem intimidated in the same way. That kind of makes sense. Do you guys remember... I don't know if you've ever read the lyrics to the ArnoCorps Jingle All the Way song. But we started with... Here, I need to make sure I get my own lyrics right.
You start with the number one customer.
It says, "Don't you forget, you're my number one customer. I just work in sales, but I'm still very muscular." Yeah. Because I had to make a point of, why is this former Mr. Olympia, who is obviously still very muscular, they never mention his muscles except for one scene. Phil Hartman says, "You can't bench press your way out of this one."
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was weird because up until that point, no one mentioned that Arnold is former bodybuilder champion. So I wonder if that was Phil Hartman ad-libbing because he's a really funny guy.
Yes, he is.
Maybe. There was a lot ad-libbed in this movie. Pretty much every altercation with Myron and Howard has, all of those arguments were improvised. Sinbad improvised the majority of the lines in the film.
Nice. And
Arnold he improvised a lot of his responses. So that's kind of why they play off of each other so well and they react so well in the moment. Because there's that whole Curb Your Enthusiasm dynamic going between the two of them.
I want to believe that "Put the cookie down" was improvised.
I want to say that too.
I say that all the time. That's one of my favorite lines in cinema.
Every time I see it, every time my wife makes cookies, which happened a few days ago, I always say it, and she's
that scene is genuinely, in terms of pure comedy.
Yes,
absolutely hilarious.
Yes,
that phone call. That might be the funniest phone call in cinema history because the whole Phil Hartman. Because you have the contrast of the mood, the spirit that these two guys are in. You have Arnold, who we already know is stressed the hell out. He's freaking out, and he's calling home, and he's already angry. And then his nemesis, next door neighbor, answers the door, and then he starts going, "Oh, these cookies!" He's making these orgasmic sounds from his your wife's cookies. Oh. And I was like, "Who told you could eat my cookies?" And it's just it's the funniest thing. Yeah. I love it.
I will say the comedy in this movie really is spot on.
Yes.
One of my favorite scene is when they're in the movie studio and they're trying to escape, and then the cops show up, and then Myron pulls out a package, and he's like,
"Oh, you mean the radio studio?"
The
Yeah,
radio station.
Radio station. Yeah. And so he pulls out the package. He's like, "Back up! This is a homemade explosive device."
Right.
So he puts it down, and he kind of he gets out, and then of course Howard gets out, and they're both running away, and then the cop who's the old cop that they keep crossing paths with. He's like, "Don't worry, this is nothing. I spent all these years in the bomb squad. Blah blah blah." And he goes to open it, and of course it is a bomb, and it explodes in his face.
And about 10 minutes before that, he uses that gag to get into the radio to claim the Turbo Man, which the DJ over the phone says they'll get a Turbo Man if they get the question right, which is name all the reindeer. But going back to the disingenuous part, he doesn't mention over the air that it's a voucher to get one eventually, which ends up being the case in the station.
Yeah, they didn't actually have a Turbo Man in the studio.
Yeah.
Right.
So
exactly.
So
Well, my favorite...
so Sinbad uses the same gimmick to get into the office, and he's like, "Hey man, I got a bomb in here. I didn't want to have to use it, but it's a bomb." And then they wrestle the box out, and it's just a music box, and it's not a bomb. It's clearly not a bomb. And they're like, "Are you insane? This like." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it happens all." He's like, "Listen, man, I had to do what I had to do." And then he tries it again, and it really is a bomb that time.
Yes.
And he's
my favorite part is Sinbad's reaction when he hears the explosion. That was really a bomb? Man, this is a sick world.
I use that line regularly.
Sick people. Yeah.
And that kind of just shows the cynicism, too, that, there was really a mail bomb there.
But this gets into something that I keep finding more of each time. How many crimes are committed in this film?
A lot.
Let me tell you how the real ending is, because we don't actually see how the movie ends. We only see that evening when they're at home and they're having a normal Christmas and everybody's happy, and then of course we find out that Arnold Schwarzenegger forgot to get his wife a Christmas present, and that's that. Here's what really happens about 20 minutes after that. The police eventually get the ID of the guy that's been running around getting into all of these incidents. Arnold and Sinbad are then arrested, and they go to jail, and they spend Christmas weekend in a holding cell. Then they go to central booking on Monday or Tuesday. Then after that, they get sentenced to prison because they've committed various felonies, including being a mail bomber.
Yeah.
And since the two of them were together, they're both going to be filed as accomplices. Excuse me. Other crimes committed is Arnold impersonating a police officer, a federal agent, at that, when they're busting the fake Santa rig that Arnold ends up accidentally getting caught up in to try to get the Turbo Man, and he happens to grab a fake badge before he would get arrested anyway. Also, he shows up. They both show up to the parade. Sinbad beats up the Demento guy who was the Turbo Man villain. Sinbad beats him up and ties him up and everything. So, and he steals his costume, which how they even know how to use these costumes is beyond me, and how the government wouldn't have already had this technology under wraps if they were able to do this. These are serious weapons.
The Turbo Man literally...
He can fly. He has a working jetpack. A working jetpack. And you mean to tell me that the only one possible, the only one that we know of is just going to be publicly available, that they have this thing, and that this was invented on nationally broadcast television? I find that hard to believe. Also, Side note, I didn't realize that the weatherman's name is Gale Force. That's pretty hilarious. But on top of that, they impersonate they steal an actor's job. They damage all of this equipment while under the guise that they were going to be employed by whoever the contractor is for the Turbo Man float. I guess
impersonating a police officer. Remember that?
Yeah, impersonating.
Where he pulls the badge to all the cops. Remember?
Yes, he does. In the fake Santa ring.
That alone is
heavy jail time.
Exactly.
Not to mention the speeding ticket violation, all the other tickets that we don't know if he pays them, because this has been several days.
All the times that he runs into or somehow hurts the police
Right,
officer.
those are different assault charges.
Yeah, it's all assaulting multiple assaulting a police officer.
And the police officer it gets to the degree where he has to bandage his hands from the coffee burns. Like, these are major mounting felonies, not to mention trying to bribe their way into the radio station, breaking into the radio station. Like, acts of domestic terrorism. Like, this is what happens on Tuesday. They get sentenced. They throw the book at them, and Myron and Howard spend the rest of their days in Guantanamo Bay, sucking the cock meat sandwich from Big Bob. And Ted probably, since Liz is distressed, Liz is the wife, by the way, Ted probably has no problem moving in and being becoming the new husband.
You know what we need?
That's probably what happens.
Movie?
We have a sequel which doesn't have anything to do with this, and we will not talk about it any further. There is one that exists, and that's it. But the real sequel is them going to prison.
Hey, I have a vision, guys. Based on what you said earlier, a special edition of Jingle All the Way, because you talk about these constant felonies going on. This goes back to your comment about pro wrestling commentators and how they're constantly reacting to these felonies happening every day, but they still act just as surprised. I think Jingle All the Way needs a commentary track of pro wrestling commentators that are going, "Oh my God!" Freaking out at every incident of a law being broken or hyper-violence and all that. That's what this movie needs.
I mean, for God's sakes, there's trampling too, and that's not even that's not even committed by them.
I wish we could get Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Body.
Oh God, I wish, and Bobby Heenan too, because he would be on the side. Yes, Bobby the Brain would be on the side of every person committing their crime.
Exactly.
He would be the one person rooting for Ted. Not to mention, oh my God, there's animal abuse. He punches a reindeer in the face, and then he serves it alcohol. He intoxicates the animal too.
How many movies
That's another felony.
Arnold...
He also breaks into Ted's house.
It's right.
There's a billion different felonies. There's so many. Yeah, and he does almost burn it down. So there's arson too.
We needed Gorilla Monsoon the whole time.
We really do.
Disappointed all this out for the viewer,
Maybe
pandemonium.
The real sequel of Jingle All the Way is the film Escape Plan, and the reason why Arnold's in prison in Escape Plan is because he did all these crimes.
Oh my God!
He's still sitting in jail.
That's perfect.
I'm gonna watch that with this in mind, and I might enjoy the movie now. I've never watched it before, but now I kind of want to.
Now I have incentive to watch. That would have been the perfect marketing for Escape Plan. What happened to Howard Langston? He got put in jail with Rambo. Holy shit. That's brilliant. I love this idea.
That's the real ending of Jingle All the Way.
I love it.
Yeah. It's they go to prison for the rest of their lives. A federal prison.
Absolutely. Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. This is all over the news. Not being able to get your wife forgetting to get your wife a Christmas present is the least of his problems.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey.
I hope he enjoyed those cookies.
I'm excited
to get tossed for a while.
Exactly. Tossing cookies. I can't wait to watch Escape Plan now. I watched it in the theater. And now I need to watch it as that's goddamn Howard Langston, the former mattress salesman or furniture salesman. What did he do?
Yeah, he was a mattress salesman.
Yeah,
mattresses are both things. Why was he selling so many mattresses?
I have no idea. Did that many people need mattresses that bad?
Real pure, this massive fury to get a mattress out there.
Yeah,
that's another thing
that
I think
it's a sleep number or anything. It's a regular mattress.
Exactly. I think the writers were deliberately trying to make everything absurd.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think that's not an oversight. You know, like why is he working late to sell mattresses? Like, come on.
Yeah, how big of a client could you have, with the exception of a hotel?
Well, when
Exactly.
you have Ted going around to all the women breaking their beds in the neighborhood.
That's a good point. They're in cahoots.
Yeah, I was
after
going to
all.
say, they've got a racket.
Exactly. I love it. I'm getting it. You know, this podcast giving me a whole new appreciation for this movie. So I thank you. Because,
No,
I mean,
thank you.
this is the best Christmas present I could get right here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch Escape Plan now. I'm just gonna tune
What,
out
you
whatever.
mean Jingle All the Way Part 2?
Yeah, I'm gonna
The
tune
real
out
one.
whatever his name is in the movie, and I'm just gonna pretend. Every time they mention it, I'm just gonna say to myself, Howard.
I want to
Yeah.
believe that it actually is Howard. Like, maybe
hope
even
it
in the
is.
movie, what if he's Howard? That would be so perfect.
That would be.
He changed his name for prison. Like, he
Yeah.
became like this one criminal mastermind.
Oh
So,
god, it makes me want to go buy a DVD of this and just edit and just only edit over and like hack into the sound into like all of the dialogue and just do like and just record over every instance where his name is said, to just change it to Howard,
Howard Langston.
so that I'll have my own personal copy of Jingle All the Way too.
Actually, it's perfect.
So yeah, it would have been really perfect if they had also cast Sinbad in Escape Plan.
Oh
And then,
my god!
Right.
then it would have been like cemented. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. What was Sinbad's character again?
Myron.
Myron. That would be terrific if Stallone's character is named Myron.
Yeah.
The problem is nobody even knows what the names are because no one cares about that movie.
Yeah.
No, oh god! And what even happens to poor Myron's kid the next day? Since we're speaking of the real Jingle All the Way ending,
No, right?
that kid is really gonna need therapy. He does
Oh, yeah.
Does he even get the turbo? I mean, I guess he goes home and he gives him the Turbo Man, and that's it, or he gives him the Turbo Man behind bars.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, his dad's in jail now. And yeah, no doubt that the Turbo Man's going into evidence.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So it's
They're
all for
constantly gonna
nothing.
Stolen.
Exactly. So, yeah. But at least we all know what happens with Jamie. He becomes Darth Vader.
Yeah. Oh my god! This is a result of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh no!
Who knew how important
Jingle All the Way.
That's why Darth Vader doesn't have a dad in Star Wars.
Yes,
it's Howard Langston. He's
In jail. Oh my god!
Exactly.
This comes full circle. Jingle All the Way created Darth Vader. This is Jingle All the Way is fully responsible for the birth of Darth
Exactly.
Vader.
And, you know, going back to what we talked about earlier, there's no coincidence that this is the very final movie of Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. Arnold Schwarzenegger that people are pumped about. Like, this was the grand finale right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, very next thing he did was Batman and Robin.
Oh, we've
Yeah.
spoken about that.
We have
Oh,
spoken
shit.
about that.
Absolutely. And then after that, End of Days, hey.
That was fine.
It was
I
cool.
know,
It
but
was like it's so
But-
forgettable.
It is forgettable.
it's what do they say? It's serviceable, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's adequate to spend an hour and a half watching the movie, right? Because it's got good actors and all that. But as far as an Arnold movie, because this is a whole different genre. When you're talking
Yeah.
Arnold movies, there's
Right.
a certain thing where you have to come away wanting to say the dialogue for the rest of your life, because that's what happens with all of his other movies.
Yeah.
But nothing after Jingle All the Way. Jingle All the Way? What do we have? Put the cookie down! You know how many people say that across the
I
world?
say this.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I say
I mean, it's part of culture now.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that may be in Arnold's career of all these catchphrases and one-liners. You have "I'll be back" and "Get to the chopper" and all this. The last one that people have embraced is "Put that cookie down." It's crazy.
And we do have a cameo from the Big Show in this as the giant
We
Santa.
do. Yes, exactly.
Punches little buddy, and that's about all that we see of him.
Did we have Mamie in there?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes, he is. He's little buddy, I think.
What's the guy's name again? The actor. I know he's passed away.
Oh, you mean
Vern Troyer.
Yes,
Vern
Vern
Troyer.
Troyer.
So I actually ran into him in
Did
the
you?
airport. In the airport at the height of his fame. Like I think the second Austin Powers had just come out. Second or third. And so, he is arguably one of the most famous people on the planet at the time. He is standing there at the San Jose airport, just kind of hanging out, waiting for his plane. And me and my friend are walking by, and we go, "Holy shit, there's Vern Troyer." And I kid you not, he's flanked by two, like, absolute penthouse pet looking girls.
Oh, I believe it.
With like short dresses, like legs for days, the makeup and the hair and all that, and they're just like with him, like his entourage. And
Yeah, I
I'm like,
believe it.
this guy's crazy.
Yeah,
And then we're like,
he used to hang
my
out at the
buddy-
Playboy Mansion all the time. I've seen several interviews where they mention how he used to frequent the Playboy Mansion.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But we're just like checking out this whole scene he has going on at the San Jose International Airport. And my buddy, he's like, "Can I get a photo with you?" And Vern Troyer is like, "Of course, get in here." And I take the photo. And Vern gives me his card. Which is crazy because we already know who you are. Why are you giving me your card right now? And it said Vern Troyer, biggest little man in Hollywood or something like that.
That's amazing.
That's
I
awesome.
still have it somewhere. I have a box full of business cards, and Vern Troyer is in there. But it tripped me out that he felt the need to give it to me. He was like feeling just so the man at the time.
Yeah.
He was just
So
living
cool.
that life. He's like, "Here's my card." And it's like, hey, terrific. And I didn't get a photo with him. It was great. I took the photo. And then we were all, "Thank you." We walk away and all this. And I'm like, wait a second. Why didn't I get the photo? God damn it. You know what's funny? The same thing happened to me with Hulk Hogan. I was with a friend who wanted a picture. And he's like, "Hey, can I quick get a picture?" And then he hands me the camera. Sure, take the photo, and then Hogan just leaves. I'm like, "Come on, it was my photo. I wanted a picture with Hulk Hogan."
Was he cool?
Yeah. Oh, he was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. So he was doing. He was in gimmick the whole time.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he wasn't as cool as Arnold. I've met a couple times.
Yes,
I
that
think I
you
told you on
shared.
the last podcast. He was
Yes.
very cool. He was surprisingly cool. But the Hulkster, I don't know. He reminded me. He felt. I don't know. He struck me. I'm a good judge of character. He struck me as kind of shady.
Yeah. Well, that
You know
would,
who-
that would line up with interviews that I've heard about him.
I've met several pro wrestlers, and it's probably not surprising to you that Daniel Bryan is very sincere. Seems like a very cool guy.
Yeah,
I
that sounds
I-
about right.
I interviewed him for a while, and I was, there on behalf of, as a representative of ArnoCorps as well. So I gave him the CD and all that.
Nice.
He was such a good sport. He read the whole back of the ArnoCorps CD, and he was just laughing at all the lines and all that. And he's like, it was funny because there was a line of the other press. I was supposed to spend like 5 minutes, and we're filming this little interview with Daniel Bryan. A website had sent me out there. They're like, Holzfeuer, can you go interview
Nice.
Daniel Bryan? So I said, sure. So I go out there and do that. And all the other reporters are getting pissed off because Daniel Bryan clearly just wants to hang out with me and my wife, because my wife was the one filming, and he's just like, we're all laughing and just talking about wrestling and music and working out and all this. And he didn't want to go away. And it was funny because we're even finally, the lady that's in charge of PR, she comes in and says, sorry. She tells Daniel there's more people waiting, whatever. And he's like, oh, okay. It's like, great meeting you. And it was funny. So we're walking away. My wife's like, did you feel like Daniel Bryan just wanted to hang out with us? I was like, yeah, you did. It was cool. Oh, you know who else is surprisingly cool that I was not expecting? The Miz.
Really?
I've heard that. No, I've heard that.
Yeah, I always thought. I thought he would be a douchebag.
He never struck me like he would be as douchey as his character, but he struck me. He didn't strike me that he would be a bad guy, but he always struck me as he would, he kind of would just show up, do what he had to do, and then he'd just leave. Like he would do, I'm doing what you paid me to do, and now I'm going to go home.
That's kind of what I expected. But when he comes up, I'm with my buddy, and we're interviewing him, and then I said something like, come on, what's the matter? And then he just puts his hand up, the CIA, could you put you too many pencils? And I was like, oh, again, fantastic. And he's like, me and my friends do that all the time. And the reason I was there was because Arnold was getting inducted to the Hall of Fame that year.
Oh, wow.
So a website had sent me out there to interview people and get their opinion of Arnold and all that. And yeah, The Miz was really cool. John Cena, he also, I picked up some weird vibe from him. I got the sense he was stressed out, though. Maybe he's not
probably
shady or a villain. He just seemed like he had a lot on his mind. And he was very much by the numbers with his answers.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
he wasn't personable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, he's smart enough to have made his way up, just up the food chain, for lack of a better term, where
exactly,
he's making the big bucks now as just as a regular actor, and every time I turn on a car commercial, it's probably him who I hear.
Yeah, you can't see him, but you can hear him.
No, of course not. But oh yeah, you knew that was coming. But he's always been a by the numbers guy. I'm doing everything by the book. Let me be as diplomatic as possible. He does all of the things, but he's also doing so many things that how thin he's stretched.
Exactly. He seemed like a politician.
Yeah, yeah. I would probably agree with that. He seemed like he would if you really got to know him, he's probably a really great guy. But if you're just there, then he's going to be as nice as he needs to be, just to just to keep everything smooth.
You know who was the absolute friendliest pro wrestler I've ever met? Of everybody. I've met a lot now. But the absolute, by far, Hillbilly Jim.
Really?
That guy acted like he wanted to take me home to his family and hang out. He was asking me, he was just like, where are you from? And then I'd say, from Austria. And he started talking about Austria and different countries he'd gone to. And then he started asking me a bunch of questions about my life. But I was there to interview Hillbilly Jim. And he was so nice. I couldn't get over it. I was like, that guy is either working his gimmick to a T, or he was always just himself. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Jake the Snake is cool.
Yeah?
I met him right when he had cleaned up his act. Oh, nice. And he was a cool guy. He's exactly as you expect.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've never met Jake Lloyd, though.
No. Well, maybe now you might have to pay him a visit and say, hey, we know. Oh man.
Come on, Jake!
This has been a ton of fun, guys. I appreciate this, but as we said, Jingle All the Way, and well, we
2 hours.
we touched on it. Jingle All the Way ends in a crazy, wacky fight with real life jetpacks and magnetic fists that punch and retract, and all this other things as they hijack the Christmas parade or the holiday parade or whatever you want to call it, and it's just absolute madness. And then of course it somehow he gives Jamie the real limited edition Turbo Man, which then reveals that he is really Turbo Man, kind of, and then
Absolutely.
everything seems like it's okay. Sinbad, Jamie gives Sinbad he gives him the Turbo Man to give to his son as he's being taken away in handcuffs, and then suddenly all of this is like ending, and we get the happy ending. But of course, we mentioned what the real ending is, which you'll have to watch Escape Plan for that.
Exactly. Hey,
before
guys,
we go, I do want to just say thank you, everybody. Have a very happy holidays here. To quote
too.
Krusty the Clown, this ends our non-denominational holiday fun fest. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, a crazy Kwanzaa, a tip-top Tet, and a solemn, dignified Ramadan.
All right.
And I gotta say one thing, if I may.
Yes.
Because I know you're gonna play Jingle All the Way.
Yes, we are.
Earlier in the podcast, I said I wrote this song.
Yes, you
I
did.
want to correct myself. I only wrote the words. My bandmates wrote the music. And I have to give them credit. In fact, it's primarily Eric Nagelbert, our fantastic guitar player, who wrote most of that song right there. I just came up with how to deliver the words.
All right.
I just wanted to clarify in case he heard this podcast. What do you mean you wrote that song? Nagelbert, don't worry. And I don't know if we have time. I wanted to make one more weird observation.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that was prompted by watching this movie. You know how it's big talk these days of the metaverse, and it's like this Ready Player One, where there's this world where all these different franchises live in one place. Like people talk about Fortnite, how it has different characters where you could be, John Cena fighting the Terminator, with Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
You know how that's sort of a thing right now. Well, I was watching Jingle All the Way, and I saw that the parade. And I realized that is the first kind of glimpse of a sort of metaverse reality. It's always been these crazy Macy Day parades that they have, Thanksgiving, where they have every character from every different franchise together in one hosted event. This parade.
Yeah.
They show, because suddenly I'm watching Jingle All the Way, and there's all these different cartoon characters and like mascots and products and all that, and they were all like dancing around together. And I was like, holy shit, it's the metaverse right there.
Yeah.
Never realized.
This makes sense.
My favorite's when the Christmas ornaments get knocked down and they're all just standing there like we can't do anything.
Yeah, that whole scene is pretty surreal.
Yeah.
When you watch, I was wondering how they filmed that, because did they actually put on a parade, or did they find that was already happening?
That's true.
I actually so according to Wikipedia here, which, let's take it with a grain of salt, but it's probably the best source that we've got on this information for now. Well, first of all, the filming took place for 5 weeks in Minnesota, and at the time it was the largest film production to take place in the state. But when it came to the parade was filmed at the Universal Studios Hollywood in California on the New York Street set due to the safety concerns. So they shot the parade on the set.
Crazy.
They shot the parade on the set
So
in the amusement park, basically. They shot it from above by helicopters and stitched into matte shots of real life street. This took 3 weeks to film with 1,500 extras 1,500 extras being used in the scene,
Holy shit.
along with 3 custom-designed floats. Other parts of the film were to be shot in Los Angeles, California, including store interiors, and the warehouse fight scene between Howard and the criminal Santas, for which a Pasadena furniture warehouse was used, going back to mattresses. Turbo Man was created and designed for the film, we knew that already, but the commercials and scenes were all shot by the director Levin, while all the merchandise, packaging, and props shown were custom-made one-offs and designed to look authentic. So they put a lot of work into this particular scene.
It's wild. Yeah, it just struck me when I was watching it today, that all the different characters in one place. Because, years ago, franchises were very rigorously protected. You would never see DC characters with Marvel, or, Ninja Turtles with Strawberry Shortcake or something.
Yeah.
It was always
the
very
only time where you'd see
separate.
that was the only time where you ever saw that was the Cartoons to the Rescue, which was a big, I don't know if I probably talked about this on the podcast, but this was like the big this was the big drug PSA week for elementary school when I was growing up. So we would watch Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue every year at around the same time. And this was the big don't do drugs thing. I'm sure we'll have an episode on this at some point, because it is really absurd and kind of what makes you want to do drugs as opposed to not want to do them just because of how bad this thing is. It's just very poorly written and very stupid.
I have to find this.
Yes, long story short, some kid comes home from...
Here I come.
Yeah, long story short, some kid finds out that some kid in high school or something is smoking pot, and for some reason his little brother gets really upset or something, and somehow him being sad conjures all of the cartoon mascots from every single known IP at the time, from Looney Tunes to Disney to Ninja Turtles to Strawberry Shortcake. They're all there, and they're all working together to get this kid off drugs. And there's also an evil cartoon drug. It makes no sense. He's either smoking... Yeah, it's like he's either smoking pot or regular cigarettes or both. And they're just it was an interesting cartoon. The 90s were full of interesting cartoons, to say the least. Yes.
Unbelievable.
But back to the parade, they wanted to film... the director actually wanted to film the actual parade that they do in Minnesota. And he wanted to film it at night. It's called the Holidazzle Parade, which in the movie is called the Wintertainment Parade. And and they wanted to film, the director wanted to film the parade at night, but for practical reasons he was overruled, and that's why they ended up filming the parade scene just in Universal Studios.
Gotcha. Now I'm disappointed, knowing that it was filmed in Minnesota so much of the movie, that they didn't have a cameo with Jesse the Body Ventura.
I know.
I mean, he was the governor there.
Was he at the time in '96?
Not at the time, but he's from there.
Yes. Well, actually, most of the bigger '80s wrestlers are from Minnesota.
Right, that was the hotbed, right?
Yeah.
There. How cool if we had Jesse the Body and Jingle All the Way.
Oh, that would have been fun. I mean, I'm sure they could have done it. They had done Running Man together.
Exactly.
And Predator.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm surprised that it didn't happen.
That would have been. So I'm going to do another podcast. It's called Monster Candy Podcast.
Ooh.
And they're going to do Predator. And they asked me to come on for that. And all I'm going to do is talk about how fantastic Jesse the Body was. Because, I mean, how amazing is he in that movie? He's like a comic book character that comes to life. He's like perfect.
Yeah, he steals the show in that one.
He really does. It's weird. If he were a sane guy and had a really good agent, he could have been easily as big as Arnold. as an actor. But as we all know, he is not entirely sane. And I don't think he ever aspired. I don't think he ever aspired to be,
No, I think he was happy to have made what he made and have gone as far as he went, and just done everything on his own terms, which he has.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, he seems like a guy who's pretty content with his lot in life.
Exactly.
And it's a pretty fun lot. I mean, how many stories does that guy have?
I know. I would love to meet him.
Oh yeah. I just wouldn't want to ask him about any conspiracies.
No, let's not talk about that.
No, I try to stray as far away from those possible.
Yeah, I want to hear his real stories of different things. And not just hear him talk crap about Hulk Hogan.
I think I've heard enough of him rambling about that.
Right.
I would like to hear his real war stories of just all the crazy stuff he did.
Right. All right, guys. I've steered this off course enough for you.
That is A-okay.
All right. I appreciate that.
We aim to please on this show.
Well, that was fun. Thank you again for having me on.
Oh, yes. You're very welcome.
And Merry Christmas. Jingle all the way. Happy Hanukkah. All the ballsy goddamn winter time. Even Krampus night.
Yeah.
Forget about it. Let's throw it all in there. Wishing it to be happy across the board.
Happy and healthy and merry everything, everybody.
Absolutely.
This has been Why Does This Exist? I have been Chris.
I have been Rob.
And I am still Holzfeuer.
All right. Merry, everybody. Good night. Here is Jingle All the Way from ArnoCorps, the greatest band of all time. And now we're playing the greatest holiday song of all time.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.